Welcome, welcome. Hope you're having a wonderful Thanksgiving day. Today we're going to show you that you can eat all you want, and we're going to show you a top. This top is called the Fabric Diet. So let's first start with the pattern work, and let me go through this with you because this is just so easy. A couple cuts and you'll have it. The first thing I did is I actually doubled the front. Anytime you have asymmetric, it's easy. I just lay it down, copy it, and then I added 6 inches my length at the bottom. So keep in mind that this is just paper that I get on a paper pad. It's just, you can buy it at Staples, any supply store, any paper you have. Newsprint. Now, newsprint gets all over your hands. You don't want that. So I copied that and I did both the front and the back. I duplicated the back as well and I added the length. All right, so then my lines and my consideration of my lines is that the first line that's vertical, this is going to be a striped side, has just got a line from top to bottom. But things you want to consider is I want it to go into the shoulder seam, and I want it to go into the shoulder seam because it'll give me a longer look, and I don't want it to go through the dart if I can help it. Sometimes I can't help it and I have to go through the dart, and that's not a big deal, but then I have to line up the dart. So right there I want to keep it away from the bust point. The bust point's up in here somewhere. So right as the dart ends, right through the shoulder seam, that's like the perfect place to go. And then my horizontal line is going to go about the notch of the armhole. So keep in mind that around the armhole where that curve is, that's a great place that things are broken up to where you've got a bodice up here and then the rest down here. I did the same thing to the back. But when you're doing it, keep in mind that because you don't have equal sides and they're asymmetric, I want to, this pattern piece being up is really important. This piece being up, it's not like I can flip it both ways on the fabric. So I go through and mark all my pieces. So draw my lines and then mark. Now, there's so many different fabrics you guys can use. Holidays, I could do simply a black on the side and a red on the front, a blue, just depending on what holiday you're celebrating. I decided I wasn't going to. I was actually going to use a stripe and a solid was what I decided. So the stripe is going to be my accent, my smaller pieces. And with this particular stripe, it stretches in both directions. So I can put the stripe either way. I'm going to put it up and down. But then what I would recommend is you're going to want to mark your pieces. So for instance, this is my back and it's up and it's striped. So I know that this piece has to be up on the stripes and that the stripes are going to go vertical. I also want the stripes to go vertical on this piece. So just kind of, you can use a grain line. It doesn't matter what you're using. It doesn't really have to be on grain. It's a knit. But at least I know which direction the piece is going to go on the fabric. And again, when it's together, it's easy. But when I start cutting it apart, it becomes a little more difficult. When I made this line on the back, so put your pieces together as they're going to be sewn, because this piece is going to go to this piece. And they're going to be the stripe portion so that stripe goes all the way up my side. And then this is going to be a solid and this is going to be a solid. So you can see at the side seam, those solids will meet. The yoke across here, I did it at the notches. And again, I did it at the notches. But these pieces won't ever actually come together if I move them over here. So they don't even have to be exact because the sleeve is going to be in the center and it's going to be a solid sleeve. So all these pieces are going to be solid, and it's in this particular case, it's not going to be a difference. So double your pieces, lay them out. Again, when I draw this line in the back, I want to make sure on the shoulder width that they're the same width here so that as it comes across the shoulder, those pieces will match. And those are just little details that you'll want to be accurate. You won't want to just lop it off here and, different amounts so that as they come across the shoulder, they won't match. You want those to match. And then what I'm going to do is, because my stripes are running this way, and because this is stripe, I'm going to let my stripes run up and down on the yoke piece also rather than across. You could turn it across for a different impact. And again, this is going to be my solid, and this is going to be my stripes going up and down. Then when I cut my sleeve, I'll cut one stripe, again, up and down, and then one stripe solid gray. And because the sleeves are front and back are the same on knit sleeves, those are reversible. When I look at my fabric, and I've cut 1 yard of each is what I've done, I want to make sure the stretch goes around, and so the stripe can go up and down and that it still has that stretch. Some of the stripes you'll find just don't have a lot of stretch opposite the direction of the stripe. The main part of the stripe is, the stretch is with the stripe, so you want to make sure those go up and down, and so that the stripe can go up and down, and then you'll find the right side. And when you go to cut this out, and we'll cut it out here in just a minute, you want to make sure that that I've got the stripe up and down and the right side up, and then on my, this is a gray rayon knit, you want to make sure that that's right side up. Again, because when we're doing this particular project, you can't flip those pieces. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and just cut my pieces apart. When I do this, I don't go through and add seam allowance, but I would put a little note to you, add seam allowance, add seam allowance. I kind of do that. This is add seam allowance. You can go through and actually fix your pieces if you want to. Add seam allowance. So that one I know. This one, same thing. Add seam allowance. Or just put some kind of note. You could put a sticky, you could put anything you need to. Just don't forget. You don't want to change the fit. All I'm doing is making 2 cuts and really just creating a whole new top. It's really fun. I mean, I think it's really fun to do all this stuff. That's a stripe. I'm going to put that in the stripe pile. That's a stripe. I'm going to put that in the stripe pile. That's a solid. All right, and then again, I want my sleeves got to be in both piles because I want one sleeve striped and one sleeve not striped. So that's my stripe pile. That's my gray pile. And we're going to cut. And again, you have to cut out everything single layer. And then on this, just want to make sure I get the right side up. Sometimes on these rayons, it's hard to tell until I'm sewing, and then I say, oh, that's the wrong side. And then also I want the greatest part of the stretch going around. So those are going to determine my decisions for me. All right, and we'll cut it out. I forgot to add the seam allowance on this piece. I told you all to remember, and then I forgot. So fortunately I have enough left, but be careful. I think that's probably why I add them always on my pattern. Most of the time I do. So when you're lining up the stripes, this is purposely a straight line so that it will line up on the stripes. And because this piece goes into this piece, again, I want to pay attention that it's on a stripe so that when they're sewn, the stripes will line up. So I'm going to actually pick this up where the stripes would match. Look at your stripe pattern and then try to pick it up where that stripe would match. I don't have to pick it up right here. I can pick it up here because I've got more length than I have width, because I've turned this fabric. So because I want to get this, I want the stripe going up and down, get your bigger pieces going across, and then work with your little pieces up here because I don't have the length twice. All right, and then again, just cut. All right, we're ready to sew. So my order of sewing, and I'm going to show you the sewing, but I'm not going to stop. I'm just going to go through and sew the top and show you the finished result. The order of sewing is that I'm going to sew the strip to the top, the yoke part. I'm going to sew the yoke part to the top and then sew the long side piece. So I'm going to reassemble the front and reassemble the back. And the easiest way is to do that is to take these yoke pieces and sew them on to the body, front and back, and then sew this portion together, and then just create it exactly like we've always done. All right, so let's go sew. Here we have it. We're all done. This is the most exciting part. And recognize that as the stripes and seams and everything's going vertical, you can kind of eat all you want. Not really, but eat a lot. And just by simply making the fabric be the diet, you can look a little bit thinner. So stripes on one side, solids on one side, belt, no belt, either way, the fabric diet is here to stay. Happy sewing from Silhouette Patterns.